Hey friends, welcome to another highlight video. Today a special highlight, a financial highlight. Here's some advice for you. Take some money, take a shovel, dig a hole, put the money in and bury it. Then walk away. Says no financial person ever. I mean, it's foolishness to put stuff in the ground like that, especially our money. Much less that you might forget where it is and lose it altogether. Why would anyone be inspired to bury money in the ground? Well, supposedly pirates did this, but they would bury their money. Why would they do that? Probably because they just stole it from someone. And the authorities are probably after them, and the people they stole it from are after them. And so they're going to lay low for a bit until the heat's off. And then they could go enjoy their treasure. Well, something similar happened this last Sunday in our parable. A servant buried treasure he'd been given. A master gave treasure, a talent to this servant, and he gave talents to other servants as well. And this servant decided that he didn't want to use it and invest it and make money, more money with it. Instead, he decided to bury it. Now consider what a talent is. It's 6,000 days worth of work or worth of wages. And he buries it. Because he saw God or his master as not being a master worth serving. See, he was inspired to bury his talent because he saw his master as hard and mean and harsh, and that his expectations would go beyond what this servant could possibly give. And so, rather than have the heat on him, he buried it. He let it simmer, knowing the master would come back. And when the master came back, this is how the servant replied. Master, he said, I knew that you are a hard man, harvesting where you have not sown and gathering where you have not scattered seed. So I was afraid and went out and hid your gold in the ground. See, here is what belongs to you. His master replied, you wicked, lazy servant. So you knew that I harvest where I do not sow and gather where I have not scattered seed. Well then, you should have put my money on deposit with the bankers, so that when I return, I would have received it back with interest. This servant couldn't help but see his master as demanding and harsh and mean. He knew the expectations that the master had on him. So, are there things that inspire us to bury our talents? I'm talking more than just money here. I'm talking about everything that God gives us. Because there are moments when we think, I just don't want to do this. The gift I've given, it's not worth trying to serve God. Because he demands perfect use of all his gifts. And I can't do it. I could feel the heat. If I don't use what God has given me just right, I know he might be angry at me. In the moments I hide my gifts away and bury them, I might be this servant with one. Well, here's the thing. To understand God's generosity, you gotta see who God is completely. This one servant with one talent, he only saw a part of who God is. The part of God that demands, that says, you must do perfectly. You must use what I've given perfectly. But you and I don't see God like that. We see him fully for who he is. You see a God that not only gives us everything that we have, our gifts, abilities, our talents, our money, but you see a God who's also taken the heat off of our backs for not using those things perfectly. He sent his son, Jesus, to die in our place for the consequences of our actions and the consequences of not using perfectly what he has given us, so that we see him as a generous God. You see, our generosity flows from seeing a God who is generous, a God who gave his son for us. So the good news, we're not that servant with one talent. He buried it away, and he didn't use it at all. All of what God had given him. But you and I, we use our gifts. Though imperfectly, we use it to glorify God. We're the servants with maybe 2 or 5 talents, the other servants in that story, where God says to us, well done, good and faithful servant. Why? Well, because our God continues to be generous to us. And he gives us all we need as servants to be generous. Having a generous God, that makes us generous. All of a sudden, the gifts that God has given you are opportunities. Not a burden, not heat that blows down our back and scares us, but an opportunity to serve a generous God who has been generous to us. That's it for our highlights today. One announcement, this next Sunday we are going to have our outdoor worship service. This is our second one that we're trying. You are invited to come. If you have a lawn chair, please bring it along. If not, we have extra chairs for you. That's it for today. I'm Pastor John. This is Crown Life Church in New Orleans East. And until we see you, God's peace.